Hello, I'm Marc, host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and this is a special series during this COVID crisis where we'll be sharing the learnings, best practices, and failures and successes of all the channel leaders throughout the tech industry. So sit back, listen, and enjoy. Hello, I'm Marc, host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and today I have Benjamin D, the UK's most hated sales trainer, apparently. Hopefully that's not the case, Benjamin. I don't know if that's self-proclaimed or you've been getting feedback about that, but hopefully it's not the case. Where did that name come from straight away?
Well, it's like the phrase social selling. It's completely made up. It doesn't actually mean anything. I needed something that would stand out in a very crowded marketplace. What I teach is very challenging, and a lot of people don't like it. They don't like what I say you should do. How I say you should behave. It challenges a lot of their scripts that their mother gave them growing up as a kid. And some people absolutely hate it. You can't do that. You can't behave like that. You can't say that. You can't ask that. And it's these limiting minds that a lot of people in sales have, particularly older people, senior management. So people hate me because deep down they know I'm right, but they just know how hard it'll be to change. So it's easier to hate me than it is to like me. But I don't care. It's better to be loved or hated than never thought of at all, as Mark Twain, I believe, once said.
Benjamin, obviously, look, thanks very much for coming on the show. As I sort of mentioned, there's a lot of tech listeners out there and tech leaders out there who are, let's say, struggling to what to do in this market regarding sales. Now, what I mean by that is potentially seen as, or the perception is seen as distasteful to be cold calling or proactively calling or doing new business in a market where people are worried about their livelihoods or their loved ones, etc. And there seems to be quite a lot of resistance to even actually make any calls at the moment. So what's your view currently about doing new business or cold calling in this market?
You keep doing it. I believe last century there were 2 world wars, and for some reason people just got up and they carried on with life, and they were selling and buying and trading. And in fact, Germany created a lot of very profitable companies out of the war that are still going today. So let's not do. Look, the people who are pushing that agenda are usually people that are shit at selling during the good times. They've just now got a really good excuse to justify their crappy behavior. There is nothing wrong with prospecting. The reaction is going to be the same as if it was good times. They're either going to be receptive or not receptive. So it's got nothing to do with the world's environment. Can you phone people during global famines? Are we allowed to phone? If there's a famine in Africa, am I now allowed to phone people? If there's a disaster in Australia, I mean, this is ridiculous. Yeah. So no, there is no reason. In fact, now is a better time to be phoning people. They're at home. They're less stressed. They've suddenly discovered an extra 3 hours in their day because there's no commuting. And quite frankly, they'll be happy to talk to anyone that's not their family. So please pick up the phone.
It's funny, actually. I don't know about you, but I've noticed that people are much more receptive and kind and being nicer in this environment. So, potentially it is maybe an opportunity. Do you see, though, that there'll be a lot of people out there listening thinking, well, is cold calling dead? Should it be, nurtured calls and there should be content sort of spoke to them. They should be interested in or acting like a consumer before they actually get that cold call. Because, is anyone really wanting a cold call? In my opinion, no, they're not wanting a cold call.
Nobody wants to cold call, but nobody really wants to go to work. But there are certain things. There are things you've got to do. I always give the example. I mean, people want to become doctors. Being a doctor is a noble profession, but I guarantee most of them don't like sniffing armpits or looking into those dark little crevices. That's part of the job. Yeah, prospecting is the lifeblood of a business. If you are not looking for new customers, you are in trouble, because if you fail to deliver properly, if you upset customers and you lose them, it's hard to acquire new business. So you should always be looking. And the reason why it's going out of fashion is, I think, 2 reasons. One, I think people are getting lazier. It's hard, and we live in a society where everything's instant gratification, instant quick fix. So prospecting is drudgery. So if that's the first reason. The other one is people want to hide behind the keyboard. I don't think people's communication skills are what they used to be. The ability to engage a human being in a conversation is a skill, but we've had, 20 years of hiding behind a keyboard for a lot of people. So communication is how you respond in real-time pressure, and how you respond will determine how a conversation will go. That's all alleviated when you do it over the internet or via email or via messaging. There's all that delay. That's gone. And that doesn't make you a better salesman. It makes you a weaker one. So if anything, you should be using the phone just as much as you were prior to the advent of the internet and email.
Yeah.
Without doubt.
To get through to the top decision makers, they're obviously used to now having gatekeepers, and they don't even answer the phone half the time. They're not even responsive, etc. So how do you think it's actually now getting through to those top people if you are going to cold call them, because they might not be receptive anyway, but how do you get through to the real top decision makers?
So we should separate things. So let's take a FTSE company. The odds of you getting through to the chief executive of a FTSE company on a company phone line is impossible.
Yeah.
Namely because he has an executive assistant, and this person, it's generally she knows every minute of that person's day. And if a call isn't scheduled to be received, you won't get through. So if we're talking the extreme elites, cold calling a FTSE CEO, no, you're going to struggle unless you can get a direct mobile line and for assignment. So I say to people, don't set the bar so high. You're not going to get through to a FTSE CEO on a cold call. It's not impossible. I'm not going to rule it out, but you're going to expend a lot of energy trying to. But the average company, say anywhere from 1 million up to 25, 50 million, something like that, it isn't that tough to get through to a managing director. But the problem with most salesmen is they sound like salesmen. If you're going to try and get to someone at the top, and I teach this all the time, to be a good salesman, you have to be a really good actor. And if I'm going to try and get hold of a managing director, I can't sound like a salesman. I've got to sound like the managing director. I've got to sound like the type of guy this guy associates with. So you can't phone up and go, hello, can I please speak with Mr. Smith? They're going to say, well, who are you? So I have to change my tone, my style, and my manner. And I sound like someone who wants to belong. And I get past 85 to 90% of gatekeepers. Really? And I only talk MD or CEO level. That's the only level I talk at. I get a lot of CEOs and MDs who get angry that I got through. I don't care. I got through, didn't I? That's all that matters. Yeah, I don't care if he doesn't like me. Oh, no, some stranger I've never met doesn't like me. Oh, God, how do I live with myself? No, I just carry on. I keep going, because those are the men, those are the women I need to be talking to, because they're the people that make decisions and buy my stuff. So the only reason you can't get past gatekeepers is because you're shit. That's it.
Yeah. Once you've got through to the decision maker, say for instance you've got his mobile or that you've got past the gatekeeper, how long do you think you've got to get his attention? Is it 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds? How long?
Yeah, I do it in the first 3 seconds. And the thing about a prospecting or a telephone call is I work with MDs and CEOs and I talk to them a lot. And if I ask them this question, I always get the same. I go, do you hate sales calls? And do you know what they all say? They all say, no, I don't hate sales calls. Now, what is it that you hate? I hate shitty sales people.
Yeah, true.
And that therein is the rub. Any MD, most managing directors, CEOs, or people that get to the top have a certain level of emotional intelligence. They're comfortable in their skin and they understand in the real world that they don't know everything. That's why they're where they are. They ask for help. If you're able to tap into something that your product fixes, that this guy can recognize in his world, and you mention it, and he recognizes it, he'll say, all right, I'm listening, keep talking. But if you phone up and do the usual show up, throw up, and hope you did a good job, you will get nowhere. So the reason why I do prospecting training is people, whenever I get every salesman, I've had people from Australia, New Zealand, Canada, America, Europe, and I get them phone me, do a mock call. They all sound the same. It's like, isn't this crazy? You're from different parts of the world. beggy, very needy, very pleady, very apologetic. Do you think a senior decision maker who's confident and self-assured is going to listen to someone like that? No. You have to be the person you're calling. That is a character you have to create, because you're not a global CEO. You're not a managing director. You're an account executive, or you're an account manager to become that guy. And so I'm a consummate actor. And technically I am an MD because I run my own company. Yeah, so I suppose, yeah. But I don't manage swathes of people, but I know how to talk and sound to them.
Yeah.
And I very rarely have people get rude to me or hang up on me.
Yeah.
I'll get people annoyed. That's part and parcel of prospecting.
Would you say, Benjamin, that prospecting in general, people, they're not jumping up and down to do it. There's no way they want to do it. But if they had the opportunity to do warm calling, or they've had content before, they've got an understanding of what you do. So, I'm aware of you. I saw you on, LinkedIn. I've liked some of your stuff. I'm a big fan, etc. So I knew before I'd even engaged with you about you. But if I'd have just called you up, I would have been quite resistant to do it anyway, because I wouldn't know of the reaction. So do you think it's just pure fear, or is it just because I actually don't know if you're interested in my products or services? I don't know what you're actually looking for. I don't know if you're actually interested in buying X, Y, Z.
Exactly. So the only way to find out is to phone up and ask. So that answers that question. Yes. The second question is, why do people find it so tough? Why do they find it so challenging? And if anyone out there really wants to understand human beings and human nature, I can't remember the name of the psychiatrist, but I share a video with all my clients, and it's an eminent psychiatrist talks about the first 7 years of your life, and the programming that you're given will determine how you will become as a grown-up. And he mentions in it that the Romans, I think it was, had a saying, give me the boy at 7 and I will show you the man. And they figured out long before modern psychiatry that the first 7 years of a child's life determined where they would go. So think about it, in the first 7 years of your life, what were you taught and programmed about certain things? You were taught your whole life, never talk to a stranger. And you were never told that does not apply as a grown-up. You were then told it's rude to interrupt. And you were then also told that if you're asked a question by anyone older or an authority, you'd better give an answer. So now, as a child, no one tells you that these rules do not apply. So your little brain is programmed. I shouldn't talk to strangers. It's rude to interrupt, and I better have an answer for questions. Then you grow up and you get a job in sales. They give you a list of managing directors, they call them. And your mother's screaming at you. Your mother's screaming, I raised you better than that. I had high hope. How dare you phone that stranger? How dare you interrupt him? What is he going to ask you? You better have questions. You better have answers to those questions. And so you get grown-ups terrified. And this is all because of the rules they were given as a kid that no one said don't apply as a grown-up. So I teach all my trainees after the first session, what they have to do is, once the training finishes, I want you to phone up your mum and dad. Phone them and say, Mum, Dad, I love you, but for God's sake, stop coming to work with me. You're costing me a fortune. You've got to get your mum and dad's rules, beliefs, and values out of your head. You are allowed to talk to strangers. You don't have to answer a question. And if you can't interrupt people, then you shouldn't be in business. Anyone that says you shouldn't prospect is a communist. Because I'm a capitalist. And capitalism is all about buying and selling and creating and finding opportunity. If you don't believe in that, move to Russia, move to North Korea. I don't care. Go to China, eat a bat, make us all sick as revenge.
Oh, Ben is classic. Ben, do you think that there's a lot of resistance to calling? There's no doubt about it. There's a lot of fear about that.
No doubt,
How do we get people over that fear when they've been conditioned to think, oh, I can't call up that person, I'm going to get rejection, etc. But deep down, they know they're not going to get anywhere unless they actually start calling people. I'm not. To be honest with you, do I like cold calling? No, but do I call? I do call, but I try and make it as warm as I can.
Yeah, you know why you're trying to make it as warm as possible? Because do you know what it is if you phone a warm lead?
What?
It's not a stranger, is it? You see, you're deliberately trying to make them not a stranger to make it comfortable to call them. So how do you make someone good at this? First of all, you have to acknowledge as an individual when you are uncomfortable, because until you can identify what makes you uncomfortable, you can't fix it. So the question is, if cold calling makes you uncomfortable, ask yourself, well, why does it make me uncomfortable? Then you realize it's those rules your mum gave you. And you say, yeah, but I don't listen to my mum. Well, then why aren't you able to call? Why do you have fear? Why are you scared of someone on the phone when the worst that can happen is do? It's not like going to say, I know where you live, I'm going to come around and kill you. You know? So it's getting them to first accept that they've got a belief system that prevents them. Then you have to give them new technique and behavior that will run against the belief. And this is why it gets tough. And this is why a lot of sales training doesn't work, because you spend a day at a boot camp and you get all this knowledge and you go out and you try and it doesn't work. It's like going to the gym. If you get the personal trainer for one session, he shows you how to use everything. Oh, yeah, I got it. I'm fine now. But you go back in and over the weeks, you don't do it right. You're pulling it wrong. You don't even know you're pulling it wrong. It looks like you're doing it right. Yeah. And you ask it, why am I going nowhere? Why is nothing changing? Why do I still look and feel the same? I did the training. Well, no, you didn't. You were shown how to do it once. And that's it. How good does it take a professional in any world? How long does it take Tiger Woods to do what he does? Every day, 7 days a week, he's out there training. Professional swimmer, professional golfer, constantly, non-stop training. Salespeople, 3 days, a new car, a new suit, a CRM system. You are one.
Yeah. Do you know,
ridiculous?
Do you know what,
no, people have to start doing things.
Benjamin, I've recruited salespeople for the tech world for 20 years, right? And I get people in, and
I'm sorry.
but I get people in every day, and they'll say to me this: oh, Mark, I've done my time cold calling now. I want account management. All of them. Every one of them. No one comes into me, and this is 20 years of recruiting thousands and thousands of people recruited. Yeah. Then none of them come into me and say, Mark, I want to do cold calling. I'm happy to do new business. They might do new business, but not cold calling. All of them come.
Yeah, you know why? Again, it goes back to this reason. You do realize that with the exception of maybe 1% of people in sales, the other 90% don't want to be there. No one chooses life. No one wants to be a salesman at school. You know, what do you want to be when you grow up, Benjamin? Oh, I want to be a salesman, miss. I want a life of daily rejection. It's like, no. I want to be a doctor, a lawyer, an astronaut, or something like that. And then what happens? You leave school, you go to university, you don't go to university, you got to get a job. Who's hiring? Sales. You take it on, you know, you look all right, you don't dribble during the interview, you're reasonably personable. Let's give them a shot. You give it a go and you have some success. 2 years into it, you realize you're stuck because there's nowhere else to go because you have no transferable skill. So you stick it out. Deep down, playing the lottery every week, hoping that you can win it, or your best mate buys a bar on Hawaii and asks you to come and work with him. Other than that, it's a prison sentence for most salesmen. They don't really want to be there. And that is why they're average, they're ordinary, and they don't like prospecting. Look, I don't like prospecting, but I'm good at it, so I do it. There are better ways to spend one's time. But I've made a lot of money from it. And I know that if I do it well and I do it consistently, it will pay dividends. That is life. Going to the gym is the same. You've got to do it. You can't just say, well, I've been to the gym for the last 20 years and I've looked good, but I just don't want to do it anymore. But I still want to look good.
No, it is. And
live in reality. So don't hire them. If they want to be an account manager, say, fine, you're going to get paid an account manager's wage, which is bugger all.
Yeah. And then do you think it's now a lost art? You know, people just don't want to do it, because I'm seeing, you know, when I'm recruiting, and what does make me laugh is that, you know, companies actually now go for the graduates. They've never picked up the phone, they've never prospected, they've never engaged with anyone, and those are our new business sales team. Yet all the experienced people that have done it for years and years and years, oh no, they're our account management team. So why do companies give the hardest job to the least experienced person?
Because the value of prospecting is totally misunderstood. That's why. Because it's hard, because it's technically unrewarding in many respects, it's seen as grunt work. But grunt work is what keeps the world turning. Grunt work. And if you get good at it, and this is the thing, the better you get at something, the less you have to do of it. And that is the whole point of getting good at. We know that CEOs and MDs don't do a heck of a lot because they're at the top. That's why you want to get there, because the higher up you go, the less you have to do. You get more responsibility, but you have to do less. But I bet you, and I've seen it, and one of the reasons why I was inspired to get good at prospecting was the managing director of a company I work with. And I was prospecting, and it was a Friday afternoon. And I remember I said to him, I can't make this work. This doesn't work. And he was a miserable git. And he said, get out of your chair. Get out. And he sat down in my chair. And he goes into my database. He goes, all right, let's have a look. Phones this person. And he just acted and sounded like a managing director on the phone. He got put straight through. He had a chat with the person and he got an appointment. And then he hung up. He looked at me and said, that's how you fucking do it. Now shut up and get on with it. That was the training. And I looked at it and I thought, how did he do that? And then I thought, I can't talk like that. I can't be like that. And that's when I realized, no, I have to be like that, because the other guy on the other end respected him because he was him. People buy people like them. People don't buy people. It's a misquote. And so if I'm going to get through to an MD or have a conversation with an MD, I'd better sound like him. Because if I don't, he ain't going to bond. He ain't going to listen to me. He ain't going to believe I'm someone that is worth spending time with, because I only want to hang out with people like me. So simple.
Yeah, and Benjamin, I can't even challenge you on it. I do totally agree with it. It's bang on. 100%. What I'd like to do now is let's get some real tangible tips that we can actually do to make sure people are, they realise the problem. The problem is they've got fear. They don't want to make the cold call. They're not going to sound like an MD. They're not going to be respected. So they're not even going to try. So how can we now? What's the first 2 or 3 things they need to do to actually think, right, let's get in the mindset to actually get on the phone and prospect? Do they need scripts? Do they need?
Okay, so there's so much, but I'll give you some top tips. What makes anyone really good at anything is this. Do you know what the root of all misery is? Right, the root of all misery is attachment. If you are miserable, there's something in your life you're holding on to. If you let that go, the misery goes with it. So this applies in sales. And the reason why prospecting is so miserable for most people is because they're expecting or wanting or hoping to get an appointment or a sale. They are attached to the outcome. And when they don't get that outcome, they feel it in here. So the first thing they need to do is never give a rat's ass about the outcome of any prospecting call. I don't care if somebody says, sod off, Benjamin, I'm not interested. I don't want to meet you. I don't care. So I don't care about the outcome. That is the first thing you have to do. So most salesmen, if they're phoning an MD or CEO, I know what they're thinking as it's dialing. They're deep down going, they look like they're doing their behavior and they get to tick a box that they're working, but deep down they're already self-sabotaging. So the second thing is stop self-sabotaging. When I pick up the phone, what's going through my head is this. If this particular individual has problems I can fix, and he acknowledges on that phone call that he has them or thinks he has them, he better be fucking grateful I've taken the time out of my life to phone him. Yeah, because I'm doing him the favor. Imagine if I had the cure for COVID and I was phoning people at random trying to find out if they suffered from COVID. You better be fucking grateful I phoned, sir. Don't give me this crap. I'm not interested. If you don't have COVID, you're not interested. If you have it, you should be grateful I called you. So that is also...
People wouldn't be stopping you then, Benjamin, that's for sure. No, he's not interested. You'd be straight through. You'd be straight through. Do you think people should research a bit before they actually call? No, not at all. Just call.
No. I think that is a procrastination and avoidance mechanism by most salespeople. Look, if you've got a database and you've designed it with prospects, right? To sell, you sell payment processing solutions. You've identified companies that use payment processing. So what more do you need to know? These people use payment processing solutions. I know the person I want to get through to is called the managing director. So ergo, all I need to know is the name of the company, the name of the MD, and the phone number, and they're in my database because they use payment processing solutions. What more do I need to know?
No, not a lot, I suppose. Not a lot.
Not a lot. Everything else is bullshit. It's used by salespeople as an excuse to spend 10 minutes in between calls. I've just got to go on the website and have a quick look-see over what it is that they actually do, so that I have some relatable story, because I need them to like me first, and I need to prove to them that I care. It's all BS.
Oh, dear.
This is why people hate me, because they think my attitude and my approach is so wrong. It's not. I cut through all the crap. I don't take excuses. There are guys and women out there right now that need what you have. It is your job to find them. That is it. That is business. That is prospecting. Anything else?
Do you think, so my last couple of questions, Benjamin, do you think now is an ideal to prospect? Because, you know, where am I? You're either in the office, I'm in the office today, you know, there's no one else in there, but I'm in the office, or I'm going to be at home, or I'm going to be by my phone. There's nowhere else I'm going to be, and there's nothing else to bloody do. So do you think now is the ideal time to prospect, or was it just that this is just
It's the same. The only difference is you're more likely to get a managing director sitting on the toilet than you are in his office. That's pretty much the only difference. Yeah. No. I can't think of why it would be different. They're in a different location. That doesn't really change anything. So just before the lockdown started, I was in London doing some training, and I said, look, I'll make some calls. And I did phone the CEO of a company. They chose the people for me too. So I didn't choose these. They said, phone this guy, because he's quite hard to get a hold of, and he's not very nice. We've tried to spoken with him before. So I phoned him, got through to him, and he said, well, I'll be honest, you've caught me at home, and my wife's not here, and I'm looking after the kids. I said, fine, you can hang up. Well, guess what? What's it about? We ended up talking. The moment I told him to hang up, he said, well, hang on. Well, what's it about? So this is why I tell people to hang up, because when I tell someone to do something, this rebellious kid says, no, don't you tell me what to do. I
was going to say, Ben, do you think now, you know, obviously, you know, cold calling, you know, absolutely, face-to-face, absolutely, you know, real critical. What about now video, like we're doing now? You know, this has been a time when you mentioned earlier, you know, you've been working 7 days a week, you've never been busy, you're doing virtual, you know, sessions, etc. Do you think now this is going to adjust the style of actually new business for using video platforms like this?
Oh, see, it's very hard to make predictions like this, because right now everyone's saying the world's going to change and it's going to be very, very different. My experience, and I can only speak from my personal experiences, whilst I don't mind doing stuff over Zoom, frankly, it lacks a certain engagement level that can't be done unless you're in person. I don't think the technology is as good as it could be. So there's always, you know, if you've got multiple people on a call, it's really hard. People talk, so I personally, I wouldn't want to, if I owned a company and my guys were all furloughed, I would want them back in the office. And I said this to someone else the other day. Some people said, but there'll be some people, salesmen out there, that have gone home and realized that they are more productive. Now, I think they're the minority. And my answer to the guys that are in the minority is this: if you're able to sit at home and self-motivate yourself to make sales, why the fuck do you have a job? You should work for yourself. You're the definition of someone who should be working for themselves. The only people that have to go to the office are people who can't cope on the outside on their own. They need a wage. Yeah, if you can throw a spear and kill a deer, why are you paying someone to buying it from the butcher? Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Go and hunt it. Have all the deer you want and be in total control of when you hunt and when you don't hunt. So, yeah, if you can't make it during furlough, go back to the office. If you can make it, you should be quitting and setting up your own business.
Benjamin, my last question, and it is a bit of a prediction for you.
Yeah.
And it's your opinion. With this crisis that's what's gone on, do you think that we'll see a real shakeout of actually how people sell, and actually salespeople actually thinking, do you know what, there's a lot of ineffective salespeople out there that I didn't need. Do you think there'll be a bit of a culling?
Yeah. Oh, there's going to be a lot of experienced salesmen on the employment market after this. I think what's going to happen is people at the top will say, well, you know what? It was tough, but we didn't do as bad as I thought. And we had 30-40% less salespeople. So it's the simple rule: 20% do 80%, the other 80% do 20%. So I think a lot of people's positions will be, well, you know, there's no point in you coming back because, frankly, I'm not really sure what you did, and this has just highlighted it. So I think there'll be a lot of salesmen out there looking for work once this is over. And if you are a salesman looking for work once this is over, you should really ask yourself, should I be in sales? Because if you are good, you'll be able to make money yourself without having to find a job. I get that's more complex than that, obviously, but you understand the essence is if you're able to self-motivate and sell without an employer breathing down.
Yeah, absolutely. Benjamin, it's been an absolute delight listening to hear some of your stories. They've been absolutely great. So very much for that.
Thanks for joining us and listening to another episode of our Channel Chat podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard and are listening on iTunes, please could you give us a review and subscribe in order to get the newest episodes as soon as they're released. Otherwise, as always, we release an episode every Thursday at midday, so hopefully you can join us then.